time for Get Out and Grow with the Fresh Air crew here with the head gardener, Lee McGrady. How's everyone doing in Devon? It's hot over there, isn't it, Anna?
Just a bit, yeah. It's about mid-20s at the minute, so yes, it's hot.
That's hot for the UK. John, how are you coping with the heat? Oh, we might need you unmuted. It's so hot. We're not hearing it.
It's so hot that
your microphone.
I'm getting confused with how to control the mute button. Yeah, no, it's very hot, isn't it? I've seen quite a few people posting about it. I know you posted something about it, Anna, and you're getting some interesting comments on your post. And I posted earlier on today about what are people's plans for the rest of the summer and the autumn. And both the comments I got on that were about having to work out what to do about the heat and with the plants people had in their gardens, which is quite interesting, actually. So I think that obviously shows that it must be quite exceptional or quite unusual.
Yep, absolutely, mate.
Obviously, we've got people on here who've been gardening for decades.
Yeah.
So yeah, interesting.
Yes,
and concerning.
We are able to use the word, I think, unprecedented, because these are reaching temperatures not seen, I think, since the 1940s, possibly. Here is it 1940s?
4 years ago.
Oh, okay.
4 years ago, we have these temperatures. It's nothing new.
Lee McGrady, how warm is it in Lisbon, the capital of Portugal? Good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon. It hit 35 this afternoon in the garden I was working in a hotel complex.
Yeah.
It did forecast 32s and 33s, but definitely in the 35s. Yeah. So
and I've got to say, it's a very cool day here on the Silver Coast. Nothing. I mean, I've experienced really discomforting heat in the 5 years since I've been in Portugal, and today is not one of those uncomfortable days. So it's either coming or the forecasters have got it wrong, and that's not unknown in these times, is it?
It's a little bit overcast today. We've got a bit of mist in the air, but it just makes it more muggy and humid.
Yes,
it's not a nice heat. Yeah, it's not a nice heat.
All right. Well, we've established then that despite all the possible scaremongering, although to be fair, the temperatures have been high enough and the winds have been strong enough to cause some devastating fires. And you can see some of the footage that Gary's caught. The man who made the video of our intro also was out capturing some footage from the heights of Alvazra, looking at some quite devastating scenes. And you can see the footage of that on our YouTube channel. And yeah, maybe Gavo, if you tuned in this afternoon, thank you very much for doing that and keeping us up to date with what's going on in central Portugal. But a different picture from the capital this afternoon from Lee, and certainly from myself this afternoon. So not a bad move to come to the seaside or head towards the capital at the moment. Just down the road from me, 39 degrees forecast for tomorrow. Still on the Silver Coast, just outside Caldas de Rainha there. Botar from Cindy B as well, and from Hawaii. Look at this. How fantastic is this? How's your weather in Hawaii? And love this series. Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you. There you go. Some nice feedback there. Anna, John, and Lee. And Botar Growers from Phil Ruff, who also has a weather station as well as his forecast there. And Simon in as well. Good evening all. How are you, Simon? And John, did you want to voice this yourself? I think that might be you, sir.
Yes, okay then. So if you forgot to let Anna know about your questions or have only just thought of one, let us know in the comments, either on the Facebook or on the YouTube comments.
Thank you, sir. Okay, and Anna, you've been recently away in another part of Devon. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that while I share some of the photographs? I've had a little bit of trouble. That's why I'm a bit flustered this afternoon, finding pictures of where you were. But just if you could set it up for us, where you've been, it looks like a lovely part of North Devon or Mid Devon, I think.
It's it's in Oakhampton. I haven't been there for a little while, but in fact, it was interesting. It was almost bringing back slight deja vu, because it's on pretty much Dartmoor, and my uncle knows quite a bit of the moors. And the last time I was properly on the moors, I think, was possibly 2003, 4, and 5, doing a simpler version of the 10 tours, so the Jubilee Challenge.
Well done.
And in fact, I did actually see a map there of all the tours, like Dinger Tour, Yes Tour, which I did actually climb to the top of as a one-off, and so I did recognise quite a few of the names, but I don't think we actually climbed any of the tours. We just sort of went through the moors on a general walk, really, and this is a place. I think it sleeps up to about 10 people. I think there were quite a few rooms, and self catering as well. So we had a whole load of food as well as sweeping stuff and outdoor gear as well, and had a bit of a paddle in the river as well, which was really good. So
brilliant, brilliant, lovely part of the UK, and we can see that that's Dartmoor from the backdrop there. And look at all that granite there, Lee McGrady. Do you like Devon?
I love Dartmoor.
Love Dartmoor.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I've done a lot of hiking and climbing in Dartmoor.
Are you a 10 tours man?
Did a 48-hour challenge there one. Oh, that must be 20 years ago now, when I was a younger, fitter guy.
Yeah.
That was quite good. And big orienteering weekend. Yeah, it was good fun.
Okay, and how much ground did you... Is that the idea, to cover as much ground as possible in 48 hours or something else?
No, it was checkpoints. It was orienteering. I can't remember. It was a long time ago. I've been sleeping since. But I remember it being a painful weekend.
Yes. Okay, hoping to come to the coast tomorrow for a couple of days to get away from this heat. Is that Paul possibly there? But need to water the garden this morning before I leave. Don't fancy it at the moment. So get your questions in, folks. If that is Paul, I think he does kick off the questions, doesn't he? It's a really good question given the high temperatures that we might be experiencing. I think over there in central Portugal, they are experiencing high temperatures, and what to do about that in this unusual situation, or whichever way you see it. If it's just normal for the time of year, there's still those poor little plants in this searing heat. What to do? What's the actual question, though, Anna, that you've got around that?
Paul's was, does Lee think we should prioritise plants in this crazy heat? As I'm worried that even watering twice a day, some are dying. We're in central Portugal and temperatures of 40 degrees and rising.
Yeah, it's definitely tougher on the plants than it is on us. We tend to enjoy the first few days of it, but the plants suffer terribly from the shock of the heat and the dry and warm soil as well. So that's a bit of a thing. If you can get some wood chip or some straw around the base of the plants, keep the direct sunlight off the soil, and definitely water at night as well. Water late in the evening, or even in dark. Even in darkness, water then. It's a big advantage to the plant because it doesn't. The water doesn't evaporate the same. So it sits in a damp pot for longer, or the soil stays on the soil for longer. But yeah, it's definitely that time of year when everything needs to be getting that extra little bit of water. Yeah. And try not to spray the leaves as well. And if you're watering during the midday sun and direct sunlight, try not to get water onto the leaves and the foliage, because it really won't help the plant. It turns those little water droplets into magnifying glasses, and it can burn holes right through delicate leaves. So just be aware of that.
Okay, all right. Some good advice there, which leads us on to water conservation as well, because that's the other problem, of course, isn't it, with these high temperatures, is that it's exacerbating the drought situation. And we touch on this, don't we, every show with water conservation. But has anything else been on your mind about that, Lee?
I've recently done a job for a couple, start to finish, on the sprinkler system. And it got me thinking, they're quite lucky they've got an open well in the garden. And it was a fairly decent pump that we put in. And it does 3,100 litres in an hour. And then I was looking at the sprinkler system we're using. And the sprinklers can put out 1,100 litres in an hour. Even though they're only on for 10 minutes, that's still a lot of water getting thrown onto a lawn, just to maintain a grass lawn. Obviously, I have no objection against it. It's their well, it's their garden, who's to choose. But it does make you think, times like this, when I've got sprinkler systems on at their garden, new lawn for 40 minutes a day, that's a lot of water getting thrown onto that grass.
It is, isn't it?
So
And if you scale that up,
I think-
to all the other houses doing the same thing, that presents quite a problem. Do you think there will be a ban or some sort of limit on this sort of thing, or will that really upset people if that happens?
Well, I've heard of bans coming in for people using mains water, but not using well water.
Right.
Well, that really shouldn't be necessary. If people use the sprinklers correctly and maintain them correctly and set the timing, well, according to the daylight hours. Like mine come on very early in the morning and very late at night. We don't water through daylight hours because you're kind of just wasting it.
Yeah.
It shouldn't really be an issue, but
right.
there's places like there's some states there's places in America and some others in Europe where they're banning lawns and they're banning people using sprinkler systems, and gardens are changing, and they're gonna keep changing, and it is something we should all be thinking about in the future, buying plants that are less water needed.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for that insight. This is actually Peter Wilton Davies is joining us. Thanks, Pete, for tuning in tonight. Who's hoping to come to the coast and get a couple of days away from the heat in Castanheira de Pera in central Portugal and a little bit of water. Have you got some sort of natty system there, Pete, on a timer, or that it's something you can control from your phone on a sprinkler system? That might be quite a nice thing to do. If you have, tell us more about it. Phil is saying, planning on laying on a layer of pine mulch on our sandy soil to prevent water loss and hope to build some soil. Assuming agreement there, how much depth would you all recommend? Over to you then, Lee. The pine mulch on top of sand, how much?
Well, not going from my own personal experience, it takes what does it take? It takes 50-litre bags to do a cubic square metre. It is really quite expensive as well.
Hell yeah.
So yeah. So it's you buy the wood chip in 50-litre bags. That's about the biggest bag to sell. It takes 6 of them to a cubic square metre to get a decent sort of inch thick on it, and that's what you really need. But also consider putting down a membrane as well, a plastic black membrane, or like a weed suppressant, because that really does help the water as well. Having that black membrane down, it stops the water from evaporating and wasting it on the wood chip. So you lay your pipe, put the membrane over the top, and you put the wood chip on top of that. Yeah, and the membrane costs. The membrane costs around €1 a square metre as well.
Oh, that's a much better solution then, isn't it? Do you
you need to put the wood chip on top of that?
Yeah. Oh,
so
it's still
an added cost.
Okay, still the same amount. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. The problem with that stuff, of course, is eventually it looks horrible, doesn't it?
Well, you've got to keep topping it up. But once you've got it down, we've got it dotted around this garden in 4 or 5 places that I'd no longer have to maintain the weeds on, and it hides the soil and it retains water. And after 12 months, it starts to look a bit grey and a bit bland. But then you get one bag will do a square metre and just for sort of topping all the top, makes it look fresh, makes it look new again. And because it is a natural product, it does break down, so you do have to top it up. So yeah.
Okay, there you go, Phil. Bit of a pointer for you there. And I was going to ask you if you approved of cardboard, because you see a hell of a lot of cardboard around the place at the moment. People moving in using cardboard, wanting to get rid of it. Do you not like the look of that on the land?
It just looks messy, doesn't it? It looks messy, and then it starts to break up and blow away in the wind, and ends up in your neighbour's garden on the first windy day.
Yeah, all right. No. So maybe not a cardboard fan as well. Okay, gardens are in full bloom. The bees are busy, and so are the hungry caterpillars. Any recommendations for caterpillars there? Come back to you in just a moment, Anna.
Well, for dealing with caterpillars, unless they're on the veg, I leave them alone. Just got little butterflies, so I don't mind feeding caterpillars. But if they're on the veg, I go out and just pick them off. Individually, you can wash them off with a hose pipe. They're not very strong. You can wash them off with a hose pipe and then hold them into the soil because they're good nutrients for the veg bed. But if they're on the normal delicate plants, I just leave them alone till the butterflies.
Okay, very good. There you go, Simon. Thank you very much for that. Simon over there in the UK, of course. John, Anna, anything you've seen? Any more questions from you, Anna, or anything you want to say, John?
I'm not really sure, to be honest. I suppose I think that I can't think of anything right now.
I did like your
I
well
know you've been
comment.
posting some interesting stuff, like articles and things, Anna, that might be quite interesting to talk about if there's time.
Okay.
Or if we don't get any more questions or something.
Well, let's see. Have we got any more questions, Anna?
Yeah, I seem to get a slight problem. I can't seem to actually scroll up on the messages on my screen for some reason. But I've got a question from Peter, which was: is drip irrigation common in Portugal? It's a great way to conserve water.
It's very common. It's very common in Portugal. It's in 90% of the gardens that I maintain to some degree. Everyone uses sprinklers for the main lawns, but most of the beds, most of the rockeries, stuff like that, the veg gardens, they're all done on drip feeders. It's a great way to save water. It's actually, you save more water using a drip feeder you do using a watering can, and you can get the amount of water perfectly right with the drip feeder. So you can have it on for a longer period of time. You're not giving it a full blast of wasting half a watering can. There's loads of options for it, from slow release tubes where it just slowly leaches out of the tube, to solid tubes with nipples stabbed into it, and the nipples come in 50 different varieties. So you can get ones that do full circles up to 1 meter, and you get ones that just drip out very, very slowly, and everything in between.
John Agate. So I'm looking at John's face. It was a contest to see who could not burst out laughing.
You're very childish.
How childish are we, you and me, Mr. Agate? I can't believe it. Okay, drip. So that's how drip irrigation works. It is common in Portugal, there, Pete. And just can you explain a bit more? So obviously the tubes are joined up to the tap at some point. You're giving it a blast on the tap, or you're leaving the tap on and letting it drip?
I would personally, put in a proper irrigation system. So you don't connect to a tap; you connect to the mains water or your well water. Yeah. So that normally runs on a 32 milli pipe. So you break into the 32 milli pipe with an elbow. Yeah. That comes off into a valve system. You can get valves from 1 to, well, infinite really. And they're just little electronic on-off taps that you bury in the ground in a box, and then you put a timer system onto that. It's actually quite affordable if you do it properly. I
want to give it a go. Yeah, we've got to do that in our garden at some point.
Well, if you stay in the garden permanent, if you're going to make it your permanent home and it's going to be a permanent garden, then consider doing an underground irrigation system, because they are so much neater and tidier. They're really nice. If you're in a rental or you're going to be there for a short period of time, you're going 2 or 3 years, you can get some that connect directly to a tap, and they go again from 1 to 4. I've seen 6s, but financially the 4 ones are fantastic, and they've just got a dead simple computer system on them. So you can leave it attached all the time. You go on your holiday, you go out for the day and have to think about turning the tap on at night. There's hundreds of different varieties of them available in Portugal. So shop around and you'll find the one that suits you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to start Agrilogia, my favourite shop. Although I did find a compost today in Intermarché or Bricomarché that I want to ask you about, Lee. Aradiel Pinto is here from up in the north of Portugal. Are you a green thumb? What is actually, Aradiel is a Portuguese teacher. So what is the Portuguese for green fingered or green thumbed, please, Aradiel? It's great to see you here on this show. Peter Will Davis, luckily most of the garden is well established and heat resistant, so it'll be fine while you're away on the coast. We inherited 12 years ago from a very good gardeners and have made it more user friendly and less work. Nice job. And another Central Portugal compadre then, late on parade, Paul Williams. We did answer the question about dealing with the shock of the heat for the plants, and Lee has addressed that. Horticulture techniques used to conserve water. This comes up from time to time. Fiona might have something to say. What do you have to say about it, Head Gardener McGrady?
Well, I've given my opinion on horticulture before. It's been going on for millennia, so they don't get it wrong. If it's still happening now, and it happened before the Romans, you know, nobody invented it. It was something that we've used sort of for a millennia. It's fantastic, and I use it in my garden. Technically, all you're doing is you're burying organic matter and you're growing on top of that. And so there's many varieties. If you buy the big standalone veg beds, like, you know, the 4 foot by 6 foot raised beds, you don't want to pack that full of compost. It's going to cost too much as well, but you want to bury inside as much thick, woody, organic matter as possible, and then compost over the top. And that is horticulture. Or you build a mound starting with a big thick log and loads of branches, and you build a mound over it of soil, and you plant into the mound. And then when it retains water, because it's got a woody base to it, and it's got that thick organic matter underneath, and that holds the water and maintains the water for longer in the area you want it. So yeah, it's brilliant. It's a brilliant growing method.
And horticulture is refers to the burying of the woody material, or does it refer to the shape and the height? Because I thought it was something to do with, you know, sort of triangular nature.
No, it's in my opinion, and what I was taught, it was always about the foundation of your bed, of what you're going to grow on.
Yeah.
So no matter what the shape or the size or where it is, it's what's the foundation.
Yes. Okay.
If you walk around the English countryside, you'll notice that the really old hawthorn edges, they're all built up on a pile of soil. So you've got this 2 or 3 foot rise of soil with a hedge on top of it. That's horticulture. You know, at some point, somebody decided to bury organic matter, cover it in soil, plant the hedge on top, then they would have grown herbs and veg underneath the hedge. It's gone on, like I said, it's gone on for millennia, and it still works now. It's still happening now.
Yeah, so, absolutely love it. There's a few pictures on the screen showing the burying of the woody material and some of the raised growing methods as well. They look like hedges. Some of them are even more architectural, looking like pyramids, but it's a beautiful system. And given that the roots of the show are in accessibility and disability awareness, looks to me like horticulture would be a pretty good way of making a raised bed that you could, you know, that would be more accessible for some people. So I think that's a pretty good thing there.
I've done raised beds with accessibility in mind in the past, where we've built them specifically for either old people or people with access problems, people in wheelchairs, people who need to sit down while they're using the raised bed. There's loads of great ideas you can find online. I can share some of my old images of what I've still got if I can find them on the laptop. The projects that I did.
Oh, good on you. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've been in, since I was doing it commercially. But I think raised beds and accessibility they go hand in hand. It's as if it was designed specifically for people with disabilities. But it's a great way of it's a great way to grow veg, because it also minimises the area you've got. You see a lot of people start off with a massive vegetable garden and then realise they can't maintain it. But if you've got these raised beds, you can find to a certain space and you realise you can grow a load of vegetables in a 4 foot wide by 6 foot long bed. It's really amazing what you can grow in such a small area.
Okay, brilliant. Lovely question, Anne. Thank you so much for that. John or Anne, are you seeing anything that you want to pick up on? Oh, look at this. Going back to an earlier comment, in some counties in California, they'll pay you to switch from lawn to drought-tolerant landscaping. That's quite a good incentive, isn't it? I think. And Pete Wilton Davis, my watering system is currently back in Jersey for a week working. Helen, my other half, does it with a hose. But we're wanting to install a timed irrigation system. So hopefully a little bit of inspiration from Lee there,
Well,
Pete. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Just going back to, if you're here in Portugal, the cost of water from the mains is phenomenal. And the more water that you use from the mains, the more they charge you for your wastewater as well. Your wastewater goes off your meter. So if you're using a hose pipe, you really are you're throwing money down the drain. An irrigation system, it might cost you a couple hundred to set up, but you will definitely see that saving within a year, and you'll be making money within 2 and 3 years because it is so cost effective if done properly.
Yeah, thank you for that. Of course, yeah, always the way, right? Owen, I've seen your message there, Anna and John. The messages have disappeared for you, so that's going to be a bit difficult. So I'll just read what's on the screen now. If you do see anything, do jump in though. Good evening, all. Question: will jackfruit grow easily here in Portugal? I know it's not a cooking program, but jackfruit is of great interest to vegans, and you can do pulled jackfruit like you might do pulled pork. I've just started to sprout some seeds. What's the likelihood of them turning into anything, Lee?
I've seen a vegan restaurant in Sintra, and they've got jackfruit in their garden. So yes, it does grow well. And Sintra's not a great place for growing. It is a great place for growing because they get more rain than most other places. But yeah, I did see some just a few weeks ago in a vegan vegetable garden at a restaurant, which was quite nice to see.
Good to know. There you go, Owen. Do send pictures, please, and hope you're feeling better, mate. Planning on rainwater harvesting with storage might be useful for next spring. Then we discovered the grey water exit from the house and hoping to use that for the orchard. Thoughts, concerns, use of grey water rather than black water, please, Lee.
I'm a big fan of using grey water. We've talked about this before. When I had the cottage in Scotland, all the water went into the garden was grey water, just because of the way we were set up when we got the cottage. The only concerns you've got to have is the chemicals that you're putting into your toilet bowl or down your drain. There are eco-friendly powders and eco-friendly washing up liquids, which are fine, and it says it on the label that they're good for it. But just be careful with strong bleaches and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay. I think it's just Chris.
It's very easy.
Go on, Lee.
It's very easy. It's very easy to check your quality of water as well. Every pool shop in Portugal has a water test kit, and they're dead cheap and quite affordable, and they'll tell you the mineral rates in it. So
very good. Okay, that's a nice little hack. Thank you for that. If cardboard is mulched properly, it's not messy. Says this. I think this is Chris Smith. There are a number of people under the tag Chris Facebook user this evening. It's usually free cardboard, and plastic weed barrier eventually gets thrown into the ground and deteriorates, leaving bits of plastic when you rip it up. That might be Fiona. It also blocks the mulch from breaking down properly to build the soil. Yup, it's Fee. It is Fee, yes. And another Facebook user, Chris Smith. Hi, Carl and gardening gang. Guess I'm not logged in. You're not, Chris, but we now know who you are. So I think we've got Fee, Chris, and Pete all as Facebook users.
I already knew Fee would argue with me about the plastics, and you should argue about it.
Yes. 200-litre plastic barrel, says Simon, or IBC tanks worth consideration for water storage, filling them from the house guttering. IBC tanks, they're the ones that juices and water get stored in, right? They're food grade, aren't they? And then you could get them quite cheaply around the place in Portugal, I believe.
You can get them quite cheap. And it's a great way of doing it, but be aware of where you're going to put them. Find the shadiest spot in your garden where you've got accessibility to the drain water, because you don't want to have them sat in the direct sun, because they will evaporate before you get a chance to use it. And you'll be surprised how quickly you'll get through a big container. You know, they don't last very long. So you think at the start of summer, oh, I've got 2 full water containers, I've got 2 full Bowsers, and at the end of the first month, you're already panicking. So just be aware of where they are.
All right,
and again, if you do that correctly, you can still add a timer system with an irrigation system on it. I've seen it. I've not done it personally, but I've seen it on the YouTube, and I've seen it in other people's gardens where they've got the big containers with a timer system on that. So again, you're not worrying about going on a holiday or being away from the house of an evening.
Very good, very good. So in the shade and jacked up a little bit, obviously on a bit of gravity feeding, which would help too. Nice thumbs up from Paul Williams. And hugelkultur needs to be carefully used in very dry places, especially, this is fee, isn't it? Especially if using large logs in the bottom. Stop sniggering, John. Using a native wood from Portugal, as many are very dense and don't break down well. Use water then pools under the wood rather than the wood acting as a sponge. Okay, so be careful about the woody matter that you're using. Roots of the show. Thank you. I didn't even know I did that.
I kind of agree with Fee, but what I tend to do in mine is the smaller branches get snapped and broken up, and the bigger chunks of wood, they all got chainsawed a little bit to put slits and grooves and holes in them, so they were already encouraged to start to decompose and break down. I use a lot of pine in my hugelkultur. I used a lot of the branches off the orange trees and lemon trees when we did the heavy pruning on them. And they're already, 3 years later, they're already decomposing fantastic.
Yes. Okay. Very good. So it's all about the decomposition and aiding that. I found hugelkultur works best in high garden boxes to keep the gophers from setting up house in your mounds. There is that as well. It's a lovely home for some of the critters that you might not want, some that you do, and maybe some that you don't. So that's a really good shout as well, isn't it? Go on, John.
I was just wondering with hugelkultur, this is a silly question, but was it invented in, I know it's been going on for like centuries and thousands of years and things, but so it seems to be a bit of a coincidence then. It does, the word for hugelkultur, it sounds very much like a word from the modern Dutch language, which is quite interesting.
I think, if I remember correctly, it's a German word. I might be wrong on that. But if I remember correctly, it's a German word. But there has been evidence of it happening throughout Africa and throughout Egypt well before Europe was a open and movable, a progressive state. I know the Egyptians were definitely doing it at the time of the pyramids. So it goes back a long way. Yeah,
it is absolutely right. It's a German word, and it basically means hill culture. So you're making a hill where there wasn't one with this woody matter. You're creating a hill or a hillock, and that all works as a holistic system there. So you get the height and you get the decomposition. And of course, I think that's a great test of any system, isn't it? If it's been used for millennia by humanity and human beings, you are onto something, and you have to find your own right application for it. Thank you, everybody. We've only got 10 minutes left. Go on, Lee.
I imagine it was being used before they had a name for it.
Of course, that's the way it goes, isn't it?
It's one of common sense. It's one of common sense things. When you see it once, you think, God, that's a good idea, and then it just spreads around the world like everything that the good idea did.
Well, it's just like irrigation. We're talking about irrigation. I mean, people put water on plants and drank water themselves. They didn't think about hydration and irrigation. That was what they called it after the event, wasn't it? So yes, of course.
If you look at some of the mountain growing that's done in the Middle East and the Far East, where they use they cut levels into mountains and then they have the irrigation system that runs down and through, and some of them are fascinating to watch and to look at.
Yeah.
With trap doors and little kept trenches. It's an amazing subject. You can waste a weekend watching it all on YouTube. I have done it many times.
I'm sure. And these are people, of course, who give their lives to their growing, and they can see it over seasons, right? In a way that modern people struggle to observe such patterns and give such dedication. Also, be very careful not to interfere too much with the winter water flow, soak away, when placing hugel beds. Too often I've seen them placed in areas which cause huge problems with water displacement. And of course, then people blame the hugelkultur, say it doesn't work, rather than making it understanding that it's a failure of their positioning or an understanding of the system. Very good. Thank you for all the horticulture input there. Simon is thanked by Phil here. Thanks for the storage ideas. Have pointers to where to get them in Portugal on the Silver Coast, and possibly from food manufacturing factories. And there will be some around you. I've seen them, Phil, with the apple juice manufacturers of Alcobaça, the apple juice producers, I should say, rather than manufacturers, rather than apple juice factories. It's so unappetizing, isn't it, to call it that? But apple juice, of course, is made in your area, and I'm sure you'll be able to get some great big juice containers from those said food production facilities. Mine were from a local brewery. Look at that, £20 each. That can't be bad, can it? Go on, Lee.
If you go to your local agricultural cooperative, they will point you in the right direction.
Yeah,
and they're all over the country, and they know everybody. So, yeah.
Phil, you and me need to go to Agrilogia if you haven't been there already in Caldash. Let's go and have a chat and make some friends in there. We used an IBC. That is the big plastic container we're talking about, full of water on a 6x3 meter garden for 10 days. So there you go. There's an idea of how much capacity you've got in there and how much water you can get from it. You can install drip systems into rain barrels, and you don't need to install a pressure regulator. Thank you very much, Chris. He knows a thing or two. Hi, Lee. Would courier parcel sacks or builder's grab bags, 3 foot square, be okay to make a raised bed, filling them with muck and earth? Could also clad around them with some bamboo. They're interesting, aren't they? Those great big grab bags that come full of sand. Would you grow in something like that?
I did it back in England. I've not done it in Portugal. I'm not sure how it would do with the retaining of the water. But again, rather than doing it with bamboo, you need something really sturdy. I mean, they look great when you first fill them, but they start to sort of tilt and collapse to one side, especially when you dug the soil over regular. So back in the UK, I used to stake each corner, pull them tight, and then fill them, and then surround the stakes with cheap decking, recycled decking, and then put a nice decking top on it, and they look brilliant. Make a nice little square meter of raised bed, and they look quite nice when they're surrounded by decking or decent sized timber. Yeah,
Lee,
and that really helps it to get a good shape.
I know you're a busy fella, but I've got a request for you. If we could see some photos from your archive of some of these beautiful projects that you've worked on, one of those a week would be awesome if you've got the time, which you probably haven't. It's
been a long time. I finding them on the old laptop would be a challenge in itself.
All right,
I'll try to dig some up.
Horticulture is a German word, says Cindy, who knows a thing or two as well. Got some lovely minds that work here today. Mother Nature invented it. We humans just discovered it. That's what I was trying to say. There you go. What she said. Thank you, Cindy. Got a quote for 2 cubic meters of pine mulch for €17. That sounds all right, doesn't it?
That sounds a bit too good to be true, but yeah, I'll pass me the number.
Well, he's got a chipping factory.
If the Lisbon based, I'll have that.
It's straight from the chipping facility.
There you go.
If we could just shift from the pine mulch onto compost, because I think I found a bit of a bargain that people might like here. So that's €17 for 2 cubic meters. We bought a bag of that stuff for $8.99. But while we were there, I also saw this at Bricomarsh at the moment. It says it's made by an organic biologique company, and that is the chemical makeup of it. 30% pine, organic mixture 30%, turf, I guess that's peat, 35%, and perlite at 5%, a 350 percentage retention of water. And those at the moment in Bricomarsh are $4.99. Have we got a bargain there, Lee? 50
I think so. Yeah, it sounds quite good. 30% peat is pretty good because peat's not cheap.
Okay.
Well, we'll find out when you try to go season it, and the seeds don't take. Anyone back in the UK, anyone back in the UK, the best compost is B&Q's own multi-purpose. That's a great value compost that works every time. From seedlings to mature plants, I really do rate it, and I've not found anything quite good here in Portugal apart from worm casts, which is really expensive. So.
Okay, thank you very much for that recommendation. And Bricomarsh, if you want it, $4.99 for 50 litres of the stuff I just showed you. Anna, you had something to chip in?
Yeah, so I've just seen another question come in. I just sort of put this one in. It was a live stream idea from Fiona, and she was suggesting what seeds to start sowing this month and next for the next growing season, and also had an idea of how about a tour of a market showing what's available to plant this time of year, and suggested maybe we could talk to a nursery about what's coming next. Obviously, it need to be planned in advance, but yes, and suggested sort of doing a promo for local markets, days, times, produce, etc.
Very nice.
Well, I'm not planting it. I'm not planting anything for the next month or so because the temperatures are just ridiculous.
Oh, okay.
And everything's going to suffer. But we go back to that thing that we always say. Every district in Lisbon is slightly different time-wise. So going to your local stores and seeing what's available is the best indicator of what you should be planting. Because I know down here in Lisbon is very different to the Algarve, and that's very different to up north. But I really don't like to put anything out this time of year. I'll still be doing my soft salads. In the next couple of weeks, I'll be putting some soft salad leaves out. I might start another load of tomatoes because mine have raced ahead and are already producing heavily. I will be doing some more potatoes, but they'll be starting in the shade, probably in containers rather than in the ground. So there's a lot you can still be doing to harvest this year rather than planning for the winter. Carrots will still take now. You've still got loads of time for carrots. Onions are still good to go in the ground now for a late crop. So yeah, there's still stuff you could be doing now, prepping for the end of this year, rather than thinking about next year. But yeah, we should cover that. I'll start making a list of stuff that we should be doing end of August into September when the temperatures start to level out a little bit.
Okay.
You know, because we should be starting seeds then for winter veg. So
Yes.
I'll start to make a mental note of that and maybe put some online.
Fantastically. And I'll pick up on the other side of that. I'll definitely do some footage from markets and from nurseries as well. So I'll get out and about and do more of that, which I'm sure will be of interest to people to see what's going on actually in the nursery and in the markets, which are a fabulous part of Portuguese life. So I don't know what a QQQ is. That a quick question? Quick question quickly. How have fires affected farming production? I suppose where the fires are, the farming, if it's called farming, is plantation, isn't it? It's paper production, or growing, plantations for paper production. So it's been devastating to to that industry, except where they can salvage some of the trees. Sometimes I know they can be charred on the outside, but still used for pulp and wood fiber. But I wouldn't have the same agricultural open spaces associated with what we're seeing in central Portugal, right, Lee?
Yeah, we don't really get the grass fires because they're more controllable.
Yeah.
And the farms kind of help to prevent the forest fires from getting worse because they can be a dead cut-off point where it's easy to control. So they let it burn right up to the edge of the farm because they've got the open space behind them. The big problem here is forestry fires. Yeah, the big scary problem is forestry fires. And there's not a lot of agriculture going on there. It's a real monoculture of just trees.
Yeah, there you go. So it's affecting plantations mainly there, but good question. And understand if you've got to go, John. In the last few minutes, just wanted to show a little bit of production proof there, Lee, that whatever these are, and we don't know if they're squashes or whatever they are, but they look like it's a kind of squash. But these are the ones that had the mildewy leaves, so they had to be harvested early. Our vines that they were growing on went very mildewy and died basically. So we're left with the produce there, which we don't quite know what it is. We chop one open, and I think we're going to be making soup or roasting it, which is the go-to, isn't it, with these things? In the back garden at the moment, tomatoes. Ours are growing well too, Lee, at the moment. There's a nice red one, and it's a little colleague next to it. I'm sure redden in this heat and the temperatures of this week. A beautiful strawberry just picked this afternoon there from the back garden here in Portugal. And look at Mrs. M's peppers. They've gone from green to red in the last week very beautifully. And sunflowers, Lee. Sunflowers are showing all over Portugal at the moment, aren't they? Very beautifully.
The hotel I'm working today must have 500-600 sunflowers all around the outside border. They got carried away with the seeds, and they are phenomenal.
Beautiful. Yes,
Yeah.
aren't they
And
beautiful?
the birds love them, because there are some that are just dying back now, so the seeds are coming to the front, and the birds are all over the ones I was working around today. Yeah, it's fantastic. And I can give you a live demonstration of my tomatoes. They've been,
there we go.
again,
Whoa, fantastic.
We've had tomato soup 6 days on the run, and I'm not going to complain, because I love it.
I want a recipe, but you'll tell me off. It's not a food program. Okay. And that, by the way, is not a swan. Well, it is, but it's a plastic swan with solar lights inside. We don't have a swan. We do have a duckling that got adopted recently, who's just quadrupled, sextupled in size in a few weeks. He is growing at an incredible rate. And we've got 2 quails now, Lee. I don't know if I shared that news with you. Got a couple of quails, and the little duckling he's enjoying himself with the 2 quails. So we've got the 3 chickens, a duck, and 2 quails now in the back garden.
I kept quail for a short time. They're fun little creatures.
They are very interesting, aren't they? Quite eccentric.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. And if you, I had 30 or 40 of the little things at one time, but I had pointer dogs at the time, so we used for training the dogs, and I could take them out on the field, and they were like homing pigeons. They would return back to the flock. They were quite cute. Yeah.
Wow.
We'd take them out onto the moor behind the house, and we would get the dog to set on them, so he stands to point, and then we would flip the quail. It would fly back to the garden and be waiting outside the pen to get back in. They were quite funny little creatures. Yeah.
Okay. Point of order. It was 17 for 1 cubic meter, not 2. So not such a bargain as we imagined.
Still not bad. Not bad.
All right. You're not being ripped off. Sounds all right. We're going for a second round of most things, planting seeds. And now, since we lost so much this year, can't harvest if we don't try. That's a good, I think, a pretty good sentiment, isn't it? You're not going to get anything if you don't plant anything. And that'll be fee as well, I think. Zone 8B, so technically should be possible. There you go. Very permacultural talk there. Hydration's important, gardeners, so keep refreshed. Have a drink yourselves after watering the plants. Thank you, Simon, for that. Now in Spain. Hi, all. Planted my first container. You didn't mess about for the balcony. Cherry Toms in Spain. How lovely. Thank you, Chris, for those kind words. It does look amazing. It's Mrs. M, not me. Also have some more things to repot brought from Estoy Market on Sunday. So excited. My first little garden in Portugal. What? Hold on a minute. Are you back from Spain already? I'm confused now.
If you're doing cherry toms in containers, you've got to make sure you keep pricking them out. Otherwise, they will go wild. Okay. I've had them up to 10 foot tall on the balcony. Yeah. And when they get that big and you start having to tie them to the wall, it gets ridiculous. Okay. So make sure you prick them out and maintain the size. Keep them as low as possible.
All right. Yeah, thank you for that tip. There you go, Victoria, especially for you. And you're in Portugal. Great to have you back. Okay, that's it for the comments and all the images that we were going to share today. Thank you, John, who's already gone, which rhymes. Thank you, Anna. Anything else from you, Anna, that you've seen that you wanted to include?
I think we're up to date on everything there, I think. Haven't seen any new questions come in, I don't think. I think we're all up to speed on that.
All right, so don't forget to get your questions to Anna in the Facebook group, the Happy Homesteaders, over there on Facebook. And, of course, you can send them to our usual WhatsApp number as well. Or join us live on this show, which is fantastic, largely because we have an amazing head gardener here, Mr. Lee McGrady. Thank you so much to you, Lee, for sharing your expertise once again. Cool, Lee. They are very small right now. I think she's talking about the cherry toms there. Cheers, Lee. Anything you want to say before we go?
Just apologise for not being here on the last session. Live, I was stuck at work and unfortunately couldn't get away. So
we understand.
That's my apology.
We understand. No, fair enough, mate. We did our best. It wasn't the same without you, was it, Anna? But we did our best, and we understand. You're a busy working guy, and this is the busiest time of the year, of course. So absolutely forgiven, and we really appreciate you being here. At all with us each and every week. So much love and appreciation to you, Lee, and to you, Anna, and to everybody who tunes in to our wonderful gardening Q&A every Monday at 6:15, apart from the first Monday of the month. That'll be it for today, and we'll see you again next week. Ciao, ciao. Bye.
Bye.